Welcome back, everybody, to the Ready, Set, Live podcast. I am your host, Captain Rex Witkamp. Today is a very special day. I have a very special guest up next with us. His name is synonymous in the music and recording and producing industry. He's been on TV. He's been on notable shows. He's had some work produced on some top 40 records, done some sing-alongs and some voiceovers. You will recognize the sound of his voice most likely if you've been anywhere under the last 10, 15 years. A 20-year professional in the music industry. Mr. Leland Grant is with us today. And thanks, Leland. How you doing?
Good, Rex.
I,
Captain
I
Rex.
wanted to
How
say
you doing?
thank you. Thanks for being on the show. I'm honored to have you on as my guest, and I'm honored to have just recently met you at our adventures here in the Florida Keys in the diving industry. We can get back to a little bit about that later, but
Sure.
I see that you're set up there in your studio in Nashville, and what I want to do is just give you the floor. I want you to tell my listeners, who you are, where you come from, and just a little bit about what you do and what your efforts are there and what you're doing in life.
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
I'm from Cocoa Beach, Florida originally. I was born there and then grew up mostly in Virginia. My family moved there when I was about 5. So I went to college there, high school there, and kind of played in bands my whole life. I was drawn to music. We had a piano in the house. My dad actually played guitar. So I would watch him play classical guitar. I tried to pick it up, and my mom would put on records, Beatles, Tom Petty, George Thorogood and the Destroyers. And I would sort of play along and end up singing along. Somewhere along there, I found I had an ear for playing what I heard. So I was able to listen to a song and then go sit at the piano and figure out the chords, which helped me as I moved forward. I was able to really pick up an instrument that I might not have played before and play it. Not great at the first time, but enough to where I could get excited about music and go, oh man, this is neat. Maybe I should figure out how to play guitar and take lessons. So I took piano lessons, self-taught on guitar. But fast forward 20 years, I moved to Los Angeles from Virginia after I went to college. And then I ended up in Nashville pursuing songwriting, which led me to build the studio to allow me to record songs that I've written. And then that, again, once you have a studio, people want to come see it. People want to come work there. This is a cool place, I guess. That's what people tell me. And I've been lucky enough to have people come through here and work. That's really it. I think that answers your question.
Awesome. Sort of a round and back method to get back to what you originally had as a concept for an idea of what you want to do in life, and
Right.
Obviously this means that following your passion has led you to a success. And I define for my listeners that success ultimately is defined by the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, and we can get back to that. And really, I just want to introduce today's topics, and I've been on a rant about this lately. It's the 5 tenets, what I like to call the 5 tenets. And a tenet is defined as a core belief of something that rings true for someone or something, a company or an organization. Really a core belief, and we're going to go through why it's important, and everything is in context of figuring out these things that matter most to us in this environment that we're in. 50 million people are out of work, and another 47 million people are slated to lose their jobs to artificial intelligence. We're in a day and age that we've never been before.
Yeah.
And so it's important right now for people to understand more than ever to invest in themselves. The people that come out of this this era that we're in are going to be the people that invest in themselves, that have sharpened their skills and honed their craft. And it's important right now to focus on these 5 tenets, okay? To rise above mediocrity, to elevate one's standards, to visualize the best versions of ourselves, to live up to our potentials, and then give purpose for that ultimate potential that we all have. And so, taking it from the top, Leland, I want you to speak to the first tenet here, and this is rising above mediocrity. Obviously, you have a great production studio there, which has to do, and I know you told me a little story off air about how you felt an opportunity come about because of that, how you could rise above mediocrity. Tell me about that.
Right. Well, something I wanted to say that I thought about when you sent me the list of the 5
Mhm.
tenets was that I was led to my potential by going through those 4 things in a roundabout way. For me, the first part, before I could rise above mediocrity, I think I had to see what the potential was, almost like not a cart before the horse sort of thing, but going, man, I could be a musician full time.
Yeah.
So then you look around and you're like, man, all my friends are like, I mean, I waited tables, I worked manual labor building tents. I've, been running dive boats with you. So
Yeah.
one of the things I think is important is at the very beginning, mediocrity has such a negative connotation to it. Maybe it's almost mediocrity, but it's almost where we are right now and where do we want to go. And you have to see that there's potential. But the potential for me was listening to my heart and going, man, I love these songs and I love being able to sit down at the piano and play the piano. So, oh, sorry, my screensaver's going off. But,
That's all right.
but that was me going, man, I had friends who were like, oh man, you can't be in a band. You're never going to make money doing that. I'm going,
Yeah.
well,
The haters. Yep.
haters. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had some friends who were like, well, you can make money, but this is how you have to do it. You got to be in a cover band. You got to play in these clubs. And these are the
Yeah.
50 songs you get to do. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going, man, why can't I go do TV shows? Why can't I do voiceover work?
Exactly.
Really about me saying, sort of like, life's what you make it, man. Life's your oyster, There's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the only barrier to entry is yourself. Now
Oh, that's great. Yep.
you might go, I mean, I work with people who are like, I want to be the singer, and they come in and I'm like, okay. They're like, well, what do you think? I say, well, have you ever had a vocal coach? No. I'm like, okay, you should go get vocal coaching because you got an inch. I believe everybody can sing. They just got to learn. Everything I can do or play, I've either taken lessons or taught myself or watched, like you said, unprecedented time. How much content is there on YouTube to learn about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, full circle to answer your question. I mean, rising above mediocrity, you got to fight battles. You're going to hit roadblocks. And one of the things we were talking about off air was when I went to college, I went to Old Dominion University in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in high school, I was very inspired by my band teacher and Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins was super inspiring, but for me, he pushed you by being super direct, and not that nothing was ever good enough, but what you were playing right now wasn't as good as you could play. Maybe that's a way to say it. So Mr. Jenkins pushed all of us. And to be honest, I went into college wanting to follow his steps and be a music teacher, be a band director for a high school. I saw a lot of high schools that age where those bulbs get flipped, and people go, oh man, well, maybe I love playing lacrosse, but gosh, this trumpet thing could really be cool. And that, this really is neat. And people have these barriers to entry, but if they work at it hard enough, I believe you push back. So in college, I went in as a piano major. As I said, I played piano for being a kid. And then I was told by the dean of the university, said, hey, if you want to be a band teacher, you can't be a piano major. Now, this was after 2 years of school. Okay, 2 years of school. They were like, oh, by the way, we noticed you're an education major. And your freshman and sophomore year, you spent in a cubicle learning Chopin. So they said, you need to switch your primary instrument to a band instrument. So I picked percussion because in high school, that was my main thing, was percussion. Timpani, cymbals, snare, xylophone, all that. So I did that and then had a falling out with the dean of the music program. The falling out was it was simple. I showed up late for a dress rehearsal for the concert that was 2 days later. I was coming from work, driving through the rain, and opened the back door quietly. He stops the whole band and is like, why are you late? I was like, I'm telling you, man, I was like it was a 4-hour rehearsal.
Yeah.
I was late though, whatever. It doesn't matter. I was late. So he goes, don't show up to the concert and see me in my office Monday.
Oof.
So now that also will tell you how critical or non-critical my parts were in percussion. Because at the time I was just out of my sophomore year. So I mean, the seniors and juniors got the snare drum, big parts and the big bass drum parts. I was playing like triangle, cymbal crash,
Cowbell.
cowbell, wood block, things that were, but tell you, that's how critical I wasn't, because he could say, don't show up tomorrow, because he knew that somebody else could cover my parts because they have two hands. So anyway, on Monday, I wrote this letter of apology. Sorry, I'm late, blah, blah, blah. And he gave me a C- in band that year. Mm-hmm. Who gets a C- in band? And I decided at that moment, I was like, man, I'm not going to put up with this. Not because I wasn't able to swallow my pride and say I screwed up, but the way he treated me was so condescending, where I was like, I'm sorry I was late. Here's a letter of apology.
Yeah. Not good enough.
No, not good enough. C-. I'm going C-. Well, you didn't play the concert. Well, because you didn't let me play the concert.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my best friend, who's still my best friend of 25 years, was at the same school. So I told him about it. He goes, man, you should change your major. I said, well, what are you majoring in? He goes, I'm majoring in interdisciplinary studies. So I went to my advisor and I said, what's IDS? And he said, well, it's this thing where you take different disciplines, interdisciplinary, and you combine them all and you write a thesis proposal to demonstrate to the university why this degree program is missing and why yours should be a degree program. So basically, I took my music credits, which I had 2 years of credits. I then took some business courses. I said, hey, I can take these business courses like finance, accounting, things, a music business person would need. And then I was able to go to another school, Hampton University, across the city, and they had a recording program because Old Dominion didn't have a recording studio. There was no recording program there.
What did that lead to?
That led to me creating this degree called Music Production Technology that I graduated with, that now is a degree program at the university.
Wow. So that opportunity of that experience where you said, you know what, I'm going to rise above the mediocrity here. My value is not being, it's
Decided.
not being worth anything, and it's not being seen and realized.
Yeah.
And this is a way to get out of my mediocre levels and to break and shoot for excellence. And so I'm reminded of a quote by Eric Thomas, who's an amazing motivational speaker. He says that the only way to get out of mediocrity is to keep shooting for excellence. And Will Smith, right, everybody's favorite actor, right, is a name for himself. He said that being realistic is the most common path to mediocrity. And so when you're talking about your haters, they're kind of just trying to be real, right? And they're trying to bring you down and say, listen, man, be real. Well, when people are real like that, it means that they're trying to set you up for a life of mediocrity. And we're worth more. Everyone is worth more than that. So listen, I appreciate that answer. We're going to just move along to the next topic. We're going to be short on time at the end, but I'm going to move this into our next topic. And you're such an interesting spirit that we could talk forever on this. And
sure, I'll answer faster. I have
it's
tendency to ramble.
And that's okay. That's your first warning. No, let's talk about elevating our standards. All right. And in your profession as a professional music engineer, right? And tell me how you can use your position to elevate not only your standards, but the standards of your clients.
No, and good news, this is a short answer. I mean, you have to elevate your standards, you have to take what you're doing and you have to compare it to the best of the best in the world. So for my standard, if I want to be a songwriter, if I need to know if my song's good, all I need to do is turn on the radio and go and we're talking commercial songwriting here. So indie stuff like that, maybe instrumental music, sort of stuff that's not in the public pop eye. But when I say, if I'm going to write a pop song or a country song or a rock song, I'm looking at people like Billie Eilish, Drake, Keith Urban. You have to look at the best of the best, and you have to look around the world too. There's a girl in China named Tata Young who is Britney Spears in China, and she sells 25 million records a year. Nobody does that these days. So if you're not comparing yourself to that, so I was just mixing a track before we got on this podcast. So I take my mix, I put it into my iTunes, and then it's called A-B. So I listen to my mix, and then I'll listen to, this morning I was mixing to Fleetwood Mac. So Fleetwood Mac, one of the most iconic acts of all time. I'm comparing my mix to their mix. So you have to, and I mean, in my opinion, my mix will never be as good as their mix, but I'm going to shoot for that. That's
Absolutely.
my goal.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I do all the time is I always send mixes and songs and productions or tracks or beats, whatever. I check my peer group. I have friends, so I go, hey, man, can you put an ear on this mix real quick? And vice versa. People send me, hey, will you put an ear on this?
Yeah.
And I go, vocal's a little hot, a little loud, And for my clients, same way. Clients come in, it's a little tender with that because they are hiring me to work for them, but you do it with questions. I say, hey, what's your goal for your project? Oh, I want to be, like as big as Justin Timberlake. I go, okay, well, I don't think your song is there yet. And then immediately, well, what do you mean? What's not there? Well, so now I need to dissect it and get detailed of going, well, this lyric here is, Justin wouldn't say, you know what I mean? Just something.
Yeah. So in essence, you're not apologizing for, you're adding a professional element as, being the hired producer, but you're also reaching out to a peer group that's going to elevate your standards. So you're elevating your own standards. You are elevating the standards of your client, saying, listen, you're not there yet, but we can get you there. All right.
Yeah.
But then you're also reaching out to your support channels and saying, listen, open mind, open feedback. I know I'm not there yet. What do I need to do? And you're reaching for a hand up. And then other times you're extending your hand down, reaching your clients up. So that's a good analogy. And, somebody once said, never apologize for having high standards, because people who really want to be in your life, they will rise up. They will rise up to meet you there. Mm-hmm. And, when you set standards and you stick to them, there will be people in your life who fall away and don't meet the standard. And the best advice I can give is let them go. Yeah. Let them go or be dragged like an anchor. They're gonna anchor onto your wagon and they're gonna drag you down. And so once they're gone, they're gone. I have what I call.
Let me add something there, Rex, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
It's interesting because I think I would say yes, let them go. However, the caveat, and I know you believe in this, you can never count anybody out.
No, people can change.
I've had people that have come in my life, and at the time their stuff wasn't at the level it needed to be. And I'm saying, man, I remember one writer specifically, I won't mention them, but they are a massive success now. And we were writing a bunch, and I felt that I was sort of coming down and writing songs on the level that they felt great about. But at the time, those songs weren't great. Fast forward 5 years. And by the way, at the time, the artist said, man, I'd love to write with you every week. And I'm going, man, I literally told him, I said, brother, I said, I need to hedge my bets. I sort of have a bunch of things going. I said, I don't think I have time for that right now. And now I'm kicking myself, huge lesson learned. But again, this happens to 1 out of 50 people, but this guy went and worked his butt off, and he's got #1 songs now. And I'm going, man, I really should have been writing with him every week. Yeah. But at the time, it was just different. And when we,
our stars right
across. Yeah, it just
absolutely
wasn't right.
Let go or be dragged. But in the demanding world where you have to elevate your own standards, some people will either push you up the ladder or they will drag you down the ladder, and you have to make that determination. And I don't count people off and out of my life.
I know you don't.
Because people can change. We all can change, and because we're all about this. If once someone realizes they can do the same, guess what? Our door's back open. Let's have a conversation, and let's get it on to get it on.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about visualization, and I know that this is a topic that sometimes it's hard for people to grasp, but it's visualizing the best versions of ourselves. And from where you are now, Leland, from where you were, talk about how the visualization process got you to where you are now, by seeing where you are now before it was even there. Talk about that.
The way it got there was one word. It was risk. It was financial risk of saying, I'm going to take every penny I have. I'm going to max out 2 credit cards and build. If you build it, they will come. That was my mentality. But that took risk. So I had friends who were like showing me, I have this basement in my house where I'm at now, and then upstairs is 3 bedrooms. It's a small house, but I've utilized the space really well. And friends of mine were saying, dude, you should go down there and like move your little laptop thing down to the basement and spread out. You could put this in this room, this in this room. And to be honest, it was friends at the time who helped and pushed me. And the first day we did it, my friend was like, look, we're moving all your stuff downstairs. Here's what we're going to do. So actually, I was able to see the end goal, but I wasn't able to see that first push me off the ledge.
Yeah.
But I wasn't resistant to it. My friend was here. He goes, dude, come here. We're moving the couches, because down here was like this little theater room sort of thing. So we moved the couches and we put my desk that was upstairs down here. And as soon as the desk was down here, because I just didn't think I didn't see it fitting logistically,
okay.
you know, the shape of the room and everything. But as soon as the desk was down here, I was like, I had this light bulb moment where I was like,
there
wow,
it was. Yeah.
There it was. And I was like, this could go over here, this could go over here. And then this, and you know.
Then it came about. See, your friends looked at you. Your friends looked at you with the eyes of a man called Girder, who said, look at a man for what he is, and he only gets worse. But look at a man for what he could be, and then he becomes what he should be. Just by the simple act of believing in you and putting a desk in a room brought about the visualization necessary to get you to where you're at now. I mean, it's a cool thing. And so I'm reminded, there's a quote by Abraham Hicks. It says that, you know, you're more productive by doing 15 minutes of visualization than you are from doing 16 hours of hard labor. You know, so time is valuable. And when people put the investment into their mind to create and imagine, it opens new pathways, new creative pathways in their head. And as musicians and artists, we understand that part of our life and our way of thinking, it's so important. It's the driving factor behind our passion. And and it's also been said that to bring anything into life, imagine that it's already there. And so your friends happen to meet you there before you got there, but then immediately you got yourself the rest of the way just by a table.
Right. So really interesting. Cool. No, that's a guy. I like that quote too.
Yeah. So, you know, the big challenge is to become things that align with our potentials. And I'm going to move right into why it's important that we live up to our highest potential. And, you know, anybody can be a chicken or a hen, right? But if people realize that we're all eagles on the inside and we have the ability to soar, then there's no reason why you shouldn't fulfill that potential. And a lot of this comes with personal limitations that we set on ourselves. So how can you speak to living up to our highest potentials?
I'm thinking 2 things. One, we limit ourselves absolutely. And I think there's also a cultural limitation and a cultural emphasis on what's important. And when I'm talking about Drake, you know, I think I say Lady Gaga or Nicki Minaj or something, but there's in music, it's interesting because in music, we glorify money and possessions and things like that. I think people really, if they can get past that and realize that those things aren't really success, then they can look at what is my potential, what actually makes me feel fulfilled. And that
exactly
can be
it. Yep.
You can do it on a 0 budget. You can work with kids after school for free, and it doesn't cost you a dime to drive to the high school and work with kids who might be struggling. And it's cyclical, right? If your parents struggled a lot, then you might have grown up in a household that was riddled with things like anxiety over money, and could be negative things, aggression, violence, things worse than that. So I believe it's about breaking that cycle and trying to sort of take where people that you came up with are, maybe your parents, and maybe it wasn't the best situation. At least a lot of friends of mine come from nothing. And I was pretty fortunate However, I had different struggles. We all have struggles. Everybody's fighting a battle that you know nothing about until you ask
Exactly.
them. So to me, it's about realizing that maybe potential isn't what society and everything's telling you potential is. Maybe potential isn't, oh, you need to be married by 25, have a kid by 28, you need to have a 2-bedroom house and a dog, because that's what the cover of Home and Garden magazine says, or that's what, Brad Pitt, you want Brad Pitt's life. Brad Pitt's got struggles. They're just different struggles. So realizing your potential is your potential. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And you never really understand the war that's inside of somebody. And, I've heard it been said that there's no heavier burden than an unfulfilled potential. And perhaps some of the anxiety that we're facing this day and age in the pandemic, the scare, the future's so uncertain. And people are anxious about where they could be, and they don't believe that they have that seed of greatness within them. And that carries a heavy, heavy burden. And so one of the most inspiring people today, all right, who I know of no other man in life right now that works harder than Grant Cardone. And he says that treating success as an option, it's one of the major reasons why more people don't create it for themselves. And it's why most people don't even get close to living up to their full potential. So it's a real event in someone's life to face down their fears. And fear is just an acronym for false evidence appearing real. There's only 2 fears in life, all right? There's only the fear of falling and the fear of a sudden loud noise, all right? And if you think about it, all the other fears are made up in our minds. And it's a mental challenge to get over and get ourselves past those obstacles. So, if we think of that we're scared of spiders, well, we created that in our head. If we think that we're scared of success, we're creating that fear and stopping ourselves. So courage is the ability to face fear and do it anyways. And that's exactly what you did in your life. You faced the fear and the unknown of going to one of the most competitive industries in an area where music is everything, in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. And look at you. You're a successful music producer, engineer, composer, songwriter, working with the best of the best in the world. So it's an absolute amazing story. And I just wanted to once again say, Leland, thanks so much for being on my podcast today. I know that what you had to say today, it resonates with someone in the audience, if not a lot of people.
I hope so. Hope so. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I just want to remind everybody that the life that you're trying to live, it's not found between all the isms and schisms of life. It's time for people to quit the paralysis of analysis. That's how I like to put it. And it's time for everyone to just jump in with both feet and take massive action on their lives. Because when you couple your potential with your purpose, the universe is most certainly going to unfold for you. So I'm Captain Rex Witkamp on this podcast from Ready, Set, Live. I want to thank our guest today, Leland Grant of Southlight Studios. I'm going to put a couple links above and below, maybe to the side. Look around, like, tag, and share your network. And I hope you found some inspiration with this podcast. And I want to wish you a good day, the rest of the day, sir. And I'll talk to you later.
See you, Rex.
Thanks, pal. Take care. Thanks again.